now we're reacting to Is LeBron James I Promise School failing? Now I haven't heard of this school in a long time. I don't know what happened to it.
Years ago, LeBron James stood at this exact spot and opened his I Promise School. Arguably the greatest accomplishment in his entire career. He was lauded as a philanthropist, visionary, and a private citizen who stood up to do what the government wouldn't. It was universally celebrated as a success. But since then,
So for 3 years, not one child passed the state test in math, not one.
Principal of the LeBron James I Promise School in Akron has submitted her resignation following an allegation that she slapped an 11-year-old student.
A quote, death note was found on the school grounds, and that note found sometime last week had a list of names of teachers and students who work and attend the school.
The amount of tears that I saw from teachers that work there.
what's up, y'all? I'm Kip Kame 11, and I'm here in Akron, Ohio to find out, why is LeBron James's I Promise School failing? Well, to begin, we have to go back to 2004. Fresh out of Akron, Ohio, LeBron James let all the naysayers know that he was the truth. After a successful Rookie of the Year campaign and an $87 million Nike deal, LeBron was a far cry away from where he was even just a year ago. Still possessing a strong allegiance to Akron, LeBron founded the LeBron James Family Foundation as a 19-year-old, as a way to help out struggling children like him when he was growing up. As his career accolades and profile grew, so did his organization. In 2005, LeBron hosted his first annual bike-a-thon, with kids from Akron riding along with him, joined by NBA friends Carmelo Anthony and Dwayne Wade. He continued to provide steadily for his community and took it up a notch in 2011, where he started the I Promise initiative, a program that gave resources to underprivileged children.
Okay, so everything's going fine. Nothing has a kick to it. Looking good, looking good.
In Akron, in order to help them succeed with school. This would go from bikes to computers to even annual trips at amusement parks.
I love being in this program. It's life-changing.
After a few years, this initiative expanded to the I Promise School as a way for kids who are at risk of flunking out and being claimed by Akron's tough environments, like LeBron almost famously was, to express themselves and be supported. It was a fantastic idea and the first of its kind. There have been schools opened by celebrities before, like Deion Sanders' Prime Prep Academy, Will Smith's New Village Academy, and Kanye's
What?
Academy.
Prime
all
Prep
with, be
Academy?
supported.
What
It was a
in the
fantastic
world?
idea and the first of its kind. There have been schools opened by celebrities before, like Deion Sanders'
Prime Prep Academy. 2 Prime AJ Academy. What the heck?
Prime Prep Academy, Will Smith's New Village Academy, and Kanye's Donda Academy, all with varying levels of success. LeBron's school, however, was different. It was a fully public school as opposed to private school or academy, fully integrated into the Akron public school system, and operated as such. Only that it's got over 100 of LeBron's game-worn shoes inside, and over $1 million a year in extra funding. This was history in the making. In a regular public school, LeBron James became the vice principal. But seriously, in America, there hasn't been a large-scale project like this. One of the reasons being, I'd be remiss not to mention, is that LeBron is, again, a private citizen attempting to revolutionize schooling for lower-income families and children. What he's doing is venturing into uncharted waters. Not only has he opened a school, he's opened up transitional housing down the block from the school for families and parents of students who might be experiencing bouts of homelessness. There are 50 families here who prior to this had struggles with finding housing. This initiative right here gives them a home. Less than 2 blocks away from the I Promise School. There's also the I Promise Apartments, geared for longer-term stay. Then there's House 330, where parents of kids are employed by the facilities to give them work. I talked to some of the people there, and they had nothing but wonderful things to say about the foundation.
I was never accepted into LeBron Foundation. I don't think I would have known truly what to do in life.
There are schools out there that receive additional funding, but you're not gonna find them in America. You might find them in Japan.
This is a very nice school. What?
Or a private school. There's no place in America that's providing public school resources to a facility such as this, except for LeBron. So, what's the problem? Well, for starters, we have to address what exactly it was that made I Promise so special in the first place. Beyond the grand name and media attention, there were genuine benefits that looked to be promising for children coming from different backgrounds. The inaugural principal for the school, Brandy Davis, an Akron native and 18-year veteran of Akron Public Schools, put it
This really got me thinking. Like, I never knew any of this. I just knew he had a school, but I low-key forgot. Speaking of it, I literally seen an NBA player yesterday, now that I'm thinking about it. I seen Trey Young yesterday at a football game. That's pretty crazy. Yeah.
mainly in national news circuits. We are going to be that groundbreaking school that will be a nationally recognized model for urban and public school excellence. We are letting people know it is about true wraparound support, true family integration, and true compassion. Wraparound support, like a hug. That's one of the core tenets of the I Promise School. It's the vibe that LeBron James and his, family foundation we're looking to cultivate. It's plastered everywhere around the school, and it's even the first thing you see on the website, and also when you pull up to the school. The I Promise School was looking to create an environment where kids at school felt like they were at home, and that their teachers were family. This was accomplished in a multitude of ways. On top of the taxpayer funding that I Promise got as a part of the Akron School District, something for some reason that drew ire in the local press, there's about $1.5 million extra that the LeBron James Family Foundation provides for the I Promise School budget. Given its rather elaborate interiors and miscellaneous costs that came with new features, the foundation spent approximately $2 million in the school's inception. This extra spending goes for creating smaller class sizes for children, free bikes, hiring tutors for after-school programs, free breakfast, lunch, and afternoon snacks, as well as an on-site family resource center, which includes a food drive, GED education classes, and lawyer services for parents of the I Promise kids. Beyond that, there was a significantly longer school year from July to May, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., as well as 4 intervention specialists and an ESL teacher. All of this in Akron, home of one of the poorest school districts in the state. Then, of course, there are all the visits made by LeBron James, his shoes on the walls, and sometimes personalized messages and shout-outs from the king himself. To any kid, best school ever, right? The teachers thought so too.
Oh, I actually thought it was going to be amazing.
Former I Promise School teacher Jessica Gerber,
a 12-year veteran of Akron Public Schools,
who started at the I Promise School in 2022. More on her later. The very first school year of the I Promise School started with much fanfare. I mean, after all, it was literally the LeBron School. Everyone and their mother wanted to know how it would turn out. So much so that LeBron's media company, Spring Hill Productions, commissioned a documentary on the first year of the I Promise School. You can find it on YouTube. I highly recommend it. It's an amazing watch. In the first few minutes, you can see there's a great amount of resources that truly do provide relief for families in serious need.
So this is just the elementary, I'm guessing. Because if this was a high school, I would have been heard about this.
Instilled hope in the family of those attending the school.
LeBron James who's gonna help him and stuff, with his problem, like with his reading, everything.
But now the issue, and the very big issue at that, is actually educating the kids. The way that students from the I Promise School were selected was through a lottery consisting of second graders from the bottom 25% of achievement levels in Akron, those classified as academically at risk. The lucky 120, or technically 240 because it was 3rd and 4th grade for the first year, would get placed into the I Promise School and receive nice perks like free uniforms and more serious ones like jobs for parents. All of these children came with baggage, and a lot of it. It tended to be the reason even that they were low achieving. They weren't able to focus on class because they were acting out. Oftentimes, this was because they had unstable home lives, with families not knowing how to prioritize education because they hadn't been down the path themselves and were busy worrying about other things. Take Nate, for example, a kid who was showcased on LeBron's Instagram story, who began at a kindergarten reading level. If something got too frustrating or intense for him, he would get up and walk out of the classroom. His teachers would say that he was so behind, not because he wasn't able to learn, but because he wasn't spending enough time in class. The lady who we saw from before was Nate's grandma, who lives with Nate's mom and her 7 kids. What happened to the dad?
And his friends set him up. They stabbed him, shot him, ran him over. They stabbed him with a stone.
On top of that, Nate had experienced a SWAT raid in his apartment complex after his uncle had been caught selling drugs. He says that he wasn't scared, but it's clear the experience impacted him.
Police, put your hands up!
Nate is just one of such cases, and in a classroom, one of 20. In another class, there was a little girl who felt so unsafe that she would lock herself into one of the very fresh and new lockers at the school. After a few weeks with the kids, one teacher admitted,
"You have the romantic thoughts, like, I'm gonna change the world." So when you get in and you have 20 kids who struggle with school and you have some kids who have behavior issues, you kind of be like, okay, well, this is a little harder than I thought.
Now, I'm not going to reveal all that happens for the documentary if you're looking to watch, but at the end of the day, it ends with phenomenal news that 92% of kids met or exceeded their expected state growth in both math and reading. And on average, the kids moved from the 1st percentile in English to the 9th percentile for 3rd grade and the 16th percentile for 4th grade. And in math, kids went from the 1st percentile of achievement levels to the 18th, and 4th graders went from the 2nd percentile to the 30th. In that first year, the rate of growth in the I Promise School was better than 99% of schools nationwide. This was a huge win for I Promise, and things were looking up. But there are still issues. One, just because kids had met or exceeded their expected level of growth doesn't mean that they were on grade level at the end of the year. It just
Where's your man? Balenciaga.
meant that they at least advanced one grade level in 1 year. There were some big success stories where some advanced further, but overall, many of the kids were still below grade level, advancing to the next grade. And beyond that, there are some more serious issues brewing.
Will it be handcuffed, yes or no?
Summer, which included a 7-week summer camp for the kids, yet another perk came and went. Despite the behavioral issues and mountain of progress that was still left to be made, the sentiment regarding the school was still tentatively hopeful. There were revisions made to the initial plan of the school, one of the last ones being that they weren't going to add first and second graders like they initially intended to. But they moved on with the next cohort of third graders, and the original fourth graders became the inaugural fifth grade class. And it seemed like the sky was the limit. Then, of course, the pandemic hit. Now see, this is where things got bad. For a lot of us in the US in regular home and school situations, the pandemic was an inconvenience, sure, and lowered work ethics overall. I was a senior in high school and I experienced the strongest dose of senioritis I think one can get, but I came out relatively unscathed. For those in younger grades, the results were much more dire. Over the last 3 decades before the pandemic, 8th graders nationwide have steadily been getting better at standardized math tests. But from 2019 to 2022, almost half of that growth in 30 years has been lost, setting 8th graders in math back literally 2 decades. Now, imagine the kids at the I Promise School. Kids like Nate with 6 other siblings, a mom that works nights, and a grandmother. He had to find a place to focus in all of that mess. Or some kids that may have their heat shut off, so they'd have to focus through the cold. A student at the University of Akron did a small study involving 10 teachers who taught at the I Promise School during the pandemic. The study found that all the teachers had significant issues getting the kids to follow instructions, and a large majority of them believed that their kids were performing worse than expected, while having overall negative behavior. There have been studies done about the disparities that were exacerbated in the pandemic between high-income and low-income families. And that was the same in the Akron School District, a lower-income district. They also suffered from what's known as learning loss during the pandemic. The amount of failing grades in math went up by 9%, and chronic absenteeism also went up drastically. Now, imagine kids in the bottom quartile of this district in a situation like this. The ones that were hard enough to keep in the classroom during regular school. There wasn't any way this was going to end well. And it was a nasty halt to the momentum that had been building up. The kids that needed food and support had to now rely on teachers and employees driving around Akron, delivering them lunches and face-to-face communication. One teacher knew the route to every single one of her students' houses, and to get to them all, which she did routinely, it would take 3 hours. A quote from her as she was helping out a family. And it really just dawned on me. School is not this family's main focus right now. They're literally surviving. Like many did, I Promise got through the worst parts of the pandemic. It was hard, but they did it. But then things took a turn for the worse.
Also developing this evening, the principal of the LeBron James I Promise School in Akron has submitted her resignation following an allegation that she slapped an 11-year-old student.
Brandy Davis, Akron born and bred, assaulted a student shortly after pandemic restrictions on the school had been lifted. The testimony she gave was that there was a situation in a bathroom and a kid took a dump in the urinal. One of the kids told Miss Davis, who was rushing to the scene of the crime, using some pretty crass language. Miss Davis then said she went into auntie mode, treating the kid like her own nephew, and slapped him for using the S word. The kid's lip was split and bloodied. She immediately and profusely apologized to the family, but the damage had been done. From there, it's kinda downhill. Miss Davis was one of the main faces behind the entire operation. She's still listed as the principal on the I Promise School website, but due to the incidents, she was immediately placed onto paid leave in September of 2021. Davis then resigned in December of that year, and the school began a very turbulent period. While Davis was on paid leave, retired principal Charles Jones stepped in immediately to be the interim principal. Then after a month or so, principal of another APS school, Anthony Lane, took over for the rest of the school year. Going into the 2022-23 school year, things were looking bad. In just 1 year, the school had had 3 principals. But they were able to secure a permanent principal, a University of Akron graduate and assistant principal from a nearby school district, Tawana Ham. She was a promising and eager prospect. But after 1 year, she was moved to another principal position in the district, and shortly after left Akron altogether. The district didn't give a reason, and when the local paper reached out to Ham for comment, she didn't respond. Remember Miss Gerber from before? She was at the I Promise school for the exact same amount of time that Miss Ham was. And, well...
I'll tell you a story from the first time I walked in. The very first day I had shared a classroom with an intervention specialist, and I walked in and he was like, the kid was 7th or 8th grader and he was just chewing out the teacher.
Dang, they got middle schoolers too? Oh, they're asking for issues.
She's a young thing. And I was like, don't speak to her like that. And, you know, you don't talk to me. I don't know who you think you are. You don't come in here and talk to me. Walks out, slams the door. I mean, my first 30 seconds in the classroom.
Wow.
And that kind of sums up how the kids act. They call it a walk and talk, and anytime they don't want to be in class, they throw a fit and they walk out of the classroom. I had an altercation with a very large 6th grade student who was trying to fight another student, and I was trying to break it up, and then he, you know, turned on me like, get out of my face. I don't even want to repeat what he said to me. And there was at the front door of Akron, or I Promise is an Akron cop. And I looked at him and I was like, are you going to do anything? And he just slowly unfolds himself. He goes, they don't listen to me either. That's the response.
That is a 6th grade student. What are you talking about, lady?
Wow. Okay.
And it was after that incident, I called my boss and I said, if you don't get me out of this school, I will quit right now.
Her experience speaks for itself. A lot of these problems were evident and documented in the first year of the school, but progress was still ultimately made. But when the school went into the pandemic and then lost its founding principal, the visions that the founding team came up with weren't able to be executed properly. New students came in with the same problems as the old students, and it got to the point where it seemed that the culture was dictated more by the students than by the teachers, at least according to Ms. Gerber.
The teachers try to get kids to do things. I mean, I will be like, it's not the staff. Like, there's no support there at all. There's no accountability. I mean, we've got 7th graders beating up 3rd graders on the school bus. We have kids. I mean, when I say fights daily, multiple, constantly, fights. The amount of tears that I saw from teachers that work there, everyone's put in for transfers. Like, I know at least 5 teachers who put in for transfers because they just don't want to be there.
The teachers became overstressed and overworked, a lot of which had to do with another critical component, IEPs. If you're not familiar, it's a document, IEP standing for Individualized Education Program, in the American K-12 system, assigned to children that have a learning disability and require extra attention in the classroom. These disabilities range anywhere from dyslexia to speech impairments to autism. And these kids are often in regular classes with other students, with just a bit more attention given to them from the teachers. Nationally, there are about 15% of these types of students. In the Akron Public School District, there's about 17%. As of 2022, the I Promise school had 30% that required an IEP, double the national rates and damn near double the districts.
It's that COVID, man.
In some classrooms, that number was as high as 45%. And one of the grade levels had 50% of children with some sort of learning disability. Damn near illegal in Ohio. And straight up illegal in Akron. It got so bad that the Akron Public School District placed a limit on kids who had gotten an IEP to I Promise, capping them at 10%. It was this environment that made I Promise so difficult for teachers.
But according to Ms. Gerber, that wasn't the only issue.
Because what you see on social media and what you see, like, you know, LeBron, everything is given, nothing is earned. Or, I mean, everything is earned, nothing is given. It's actually the opposite. Everything is given, nothing is earned. I Promise isn't any different than the kids that we're getting in Akron Public Schools. They're just getting selected. Half their siblings are with us. Do you see what I mean? Like, everyone's got trauma. I don't know, like, it's just a different environment. I've never been in an environment where there's no accountability like that.
And this was reflected in the report given 2 years ago after the 2023 school year. Keith Lichty, the liaison between the I Promise School and APS, compiled a report to present to the board concerning the I Promise students and their scores. The first report since the first year in 2019. But the news wasn't so good this time.
3 years, not one child passed the state test in math, not one.
What this?
Sheesh, 3 years? Brother. So this is really low-key just like a middle school, but not because it's 3rd, 4th, and then 7th, 8th. I don't know. They probably should have just did 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Board member was referring to was this chart, one of a series in Keith's presentation that told a story quite opposite from the end of the first year, from a time of promise and opportunity to one of stagnation and even failure. After the pandemic, kids from the original 3rd grade class, with kids like Nate, not a single child passed a grade level state exam in math for 3 straight years. years. This is even more damning when considering their testing protocols.
It takes the I Promise kids 5 weeks to finish a test. 5 minutes, I'm not kidding, and they want a break. I need a break. And they're allowed to have one. They get up and they walk out of the classroom. They need a break.
Not only were the kids not doing well, they ended up, by the 8th grade, growing less by kids who weren't selected to go to the I Promise school and went to other Akron schools despite being eligible for I Promise. Again, by the time these kids left 8th grade, the kids who were eligible for the I Promise school in Akron and didn't end up going were growing more than the I Promise kids were. In math, 42% of kids were making a year's worth of progress in school compared to just 27% of I Promise's kids in the 8th grade. And in 7th and 8th grade,
In English,
I Promise kids were still learning less than kids in other Akron schools. And when we're talking about this
Dang.
year's worth of progress, by the way, this is again meaning if all of the 8th graders came into school with a 5th grade math level, then only 20% of them in I Promise would end up with a 6th grade math level by the end of the year. The APS board president at the time, Derek Hall, made this point.
Those numbers could be 100% growth, grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. But if they came to us 2 years behind, they leave us 2 years behind. If they're not exceeding 100%, then they're not actually catching up.
Still though, we do have to keep in mind that the I Promise school is quite literally the first of its kind. LeBron James and his foundation were the first to help open up a public school. And with unplanned obstacles like a global pandemic and a principal.
Yeah, but that was an interesting video. Hope y'all enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe.
Right now.